Okay, so our little agenda for today, it has three parts, no? The first one is to do a little kind of review on some concepts. To do this, we have a little quiz on this document 2B, no? When I divided this second part in parts A and B, no? In the last, on the last page of this document 2B, we have a little quiz. No, it's more than a quiz, it's just a vocabulary list, no? About these terms that we need to know and that we need to handle properly. No? So I'm going to ask Abby to please open this document, Unit 2B, and go to page 5, not the last page, 4 and 5.
Okay, bro.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So in this quiz, you're going to see these terms. Now, for example, language use task, language teaching, language teaching learning task, language assessment task. What is language assessment? What is a classroom-based language assessment? What are formative decisions, summative decisions, and all that? No? Great. Yeah. So I think it's only page 5, the last one. Great. Yeah. So as you can see, we have 10 words on the left, no? Numbered from 1 to 10. No? And then we have 10 definitions from A to J, I think it is, no? J, yes. So 10 and 10. So what we have to do here is match, no? Match. So for each number from 1 to 10, you have to write the corresponding letter. Yeah. So what is a language use task? Let's see if you can find, if you can easily find it on the right. No?
It's letter D for me. It's an activity that involves students in the use of language to achieve a particular goal. No.
Let's
no.
see. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's an activity that involves students in the use of language to achieve a particular goal. So it's a language use task. No. Yes. Exactly. No? Great. So it is letter E. That's right. Good. What about number 2? What is language teaching? Now, sometimes we confuse, well, all related language teaching, we're confused with language assessing. Well, sometimes it's like we are doing pretty much the same thing, but there are some particularities and some differences. Right. So language teaching.
Professor, can be letter E?
E, letter E, that's right. No? It's a process in which students are engaged in language use tasks to improve their language ability. No? That's right. That's number 2. Great. What about number 3? A language teaching learning task, no? A language teaching learning task.
Prof, it is letter A.
It's letter A. You're right. You're right. Very good. So language language teaching learning task is aimed, or the objective is to improve students' language learning, enhance learners' cognitive, emotional, and social development. So that's a language teaching learning task. No? Great. Very good. What about number 5? A language assessment. This term we've been using it very often lately. No, language assessment task.
Letter F, Prof.
I'm afraid that letter F, no, is a collection of individual language assessment tasks or items. No, because if you collect a lot of them, then you come up with something bigger, no? Like
Letter B.
Letter B.
B. B.
Used to me language. Letter B, no? Language assessment task is B, and number 5. And then you're right. Number 5 is F, because you need some assessment tasks. No, you need, I don't know, as many as you think you need. No? But the collection of individual language assessment tasks or items guarantee that you have a consistent, no, language assessment. No? Of course, and then well, you have to make sure that these activities are meaningful, that the records are consistent, that it's practical, no, impartial, meaningful. That the task should be meaningful, and most of all, that the language assessment has this principle of generalizability. No, but we're going to see that. Well, casually, we're going to do a little review on that in chapter 8, no? When we see assessment task templates, no? Templates. Great. Okay, very good. Not so far, so good. Number 6, a classroom-based.
Letter C.
Letter C, that's right. No, classroom-based language assessment is a type of language assessment developed by one or more teachers in the classroom. So it is the typical activities that we want to use, that we create sometimes, or when we are in these meetings with the rest of the staff, it's those ideas that we share, no, with other classmates, with other colleagues. Para crear un banco, no? For example, sometimes you want to have a bank of activities. You want to have even some assessment tasks, no, that you can use as a plantilla, digamos, no, or as a kind of starter, no, for developing your assessments, your language assessments. Great. Number 7, formative decisions.
Letter J.
H.
Letter H.
It's H. Exactly, it's H. H, because formative decisions, among other aspects, are used to make changes in teaching and learning tasks, no, in the teaching materials or in the teaching syllabus, no, because you want to decide on what's best for your students and also for your own practice, no? For your own practice. That's primarily the objective here. No? Great. Summative decisions.
Letter G.
Letter G.
Summative decisions, letter G. We've seen this concept now over and over again. Summative decisions are usually done at the end of the course. It's when you want to decide if the students pass or fail. You want to classify them into groups, for example, when working in an institute. And the process is made at the end. The decisions are made at the end of the course, no? Or usually after the process of teaching and learning. Number 9, implicit mode of classroom-based assessment.
J. Letter J.
It's the type of assessment in which students are not aware that they are being assessed, no? Yes. It's implícito, but it's not explicitly indicated, no? But I mean, students don't know that they're being assessed. That's summative. That's sorry, implicit mode of classroom-based assessment. And then explicit is when both the teacher and the students know that an assessment is taking place. Right, and so 9 is J and 10 is I. No? I. No, it's an assessment. Yeah, and so students know here that it's an assessment. Great. So these are only, well, 10 of the most common terms that we have used recently. Of course, if you have the whole book, and I encourage you to get and put it in PDF or online or something. The last section of the book has the definition of all terms in alphabetical order. Is the glossary, no? Known as the glossary. And so you have from A to Z all these terms used in assessment, language assessment. And also I shared an interesting document that I found online with it's like a dictionary, you know, or glossary, you can call it. It's a glossary of terms used in assessment and teaching. You know, it's a PDF of maybe 20 pages, I don't know. It has all the A to Z vocabulary, you know, terminology that we use in assessing. Okay, great. So I see that you are familiar with these words, so very good for you. Great, okay. And so now the second thing in our agenda today is chapter 8, you know, developing assessment task templates, no? And then in the last session at 7, or let's say 7:20, in the middle of the last session, we're going to do a little, you're going to participate in this contest, not to see how much you remember of all these concepts of especially units, you know, chapters 2 to 6, I think. Yeah, so that's for the last session. Okay, great. And so I'm going to ask Abby to please share this document, chapter 8, developing assessment task templates. No?
Okay, perfect.
In your here. Yeah, so before doing this, chapter 8 here, you know, well, you're going to see now that you see on the screen that at the beginning of this document, the author has elaborated a little recap, no? A little recap, una recapitulación on the most important aspects that will lead to developing assessment task templates, no? Because it's a process. It's not something that is isolated, no? But it's something that comes after all this process, no? Of the decision, the consequences, decisions, records, performance, etc. No? So it's something that you have to do to guarantee that you have enough. How can I say that you have a bank to guarantee that you have we're going to call it maybe some kind, well, the word is template, but maybe in Spanish we can say como una plantilla, no? That we're going to use every time that we want to organize new assessments, no? New language assessments. Then we can make use of these templates to generate other similar assessments, okay, by changing some aspects, no? But basically, it's a plantilla that we can use any time for different groups, for different times. It's como un modelo, no? that you can use, right? Okay, and so that's basically the task template. So, well, I hope that you had some time to I mean that you read a little bit this, no? Although you will find the readership being very now kind of casual, a little technical sometimes, but since you know, since you've been doing this for quite some time, and you have deepened in chapters 2 to 6 or 7, so then you're going to find this understandable and manageable. Okay, great. So so basically, well, we're going to see then in detail on page 98. I think that's where you have the exact definition of development. I mean, templates, task templates. But basically, a task template is a modified task, you know, used and adapted, you know, to create other multiple assessment tasks. You know? So basically, the idea is that after reviewing some tasks that you find useful in the course, you know, you take this, you adapt it, you analyze it, you see the conveniences, you see the benefit, and then you elaborate some, okay, some, let's say, you make this assessment task, you make it usable, no, and adaptable for an assessment task, no, so something that you can use in an actual assessment, no. Okay, como, I'm going to say this in Spanish. Es como que tomo una idea, una buena actividad, le aumento algunas cosas, le hago una pregunta interesante y le transformo en un item que puedo usar para un examen, para una prueba, ¿no? And we know that in good course books, we have very interesting tasks, no? So all you have to do is put it in this template, analyze, no, the pros, the cons, and make it meaningful, make it generalizable, impartial, consistent, and practical, no? Because those are the 5 concepts, the 5 main considerations. And so when you can guarantee, no, that your assessment has all these elements, then it should be good to go, no? Good to go. Great. And so what the author says here in this first, second paragraph is that when we want to have a good classroom-based assessment, first we need to have lots of tasks, or we need to have a lot of items, no? A lot of items to choose from. And he gives an example. No? If you want to prepare, for example, an assessment for vocabulary, okay, you need to have a sufficient number of assessment tasks, o podemos llamarle aquí activities, for example, activities that you have, for example, in the book, that you have done in other sources. No? Okay, so you're going to need to collect a few tasks, no? Several tasks, digamos, okay, to guarantee that after administering these, students finally have mastered the vocabulary that is presented in the lessons, no? Okay, so as you proceed with vocabulary, you proceed with grammar, reading, and all the other skills, no, that you want to assess. Okay, so the key, la clave, is that you have a variety of good assessment tasks that you can use, that you can choose from. Great. Okay, so this brings us to the concept of assessment tasks. No? Assessment tasks are the basic building blocks of an assessment. No? So your job as a teacher in regard with assessment is that from all the activities that you do in class, you choose those activities or o para llamarles más técnicamente, assessment tasks, no? Okay, those tasks that you consider are the most useful, no? That you consider the most useful to be used in your assessment, in your language assessment. So that's basically what you have to do. Yeah, because it's through assessment tasks that you will realize the quality that you have stated in claims 3 and 4 in the argument use, no? Assessment, argument use assessment. Great. Okay, well, here, after that, the author describes quickly the 5 aspects that are crucial, no, in preparing, digamos, in preparing the language assessment, no? And so here we have those 5 are, as you can see here, meaningfulness is the first one, no? So you want to have activities that students associate with real life, that they know that they're going to be using at some point in their or at the present in their job, in their environment, no? So meaningfulness is the first one. The second one is generalizability, no? Generalizability. So you want students to, you want your tasks, no? You want your tasks to assure that the intended interpretations, no, for this assessment are generalizable, no? So it means that you, in any context, no, that these students are assessed or tested, you know that they're going to respond in a similar way, no, because the interpretations are generalizable. The intended interpretations are generalized. Right, the next one is impartial, no? So you have to make sure that the content of the questions, no? But that's not the real term, but you want to make sure that to avoid any kind of content that may be offensive, no? Maybe in their culture, linguistically inappropriate for them. No? For example, try and avoid, for example, using phrases that may be offensive, or using phrases or vocabulary that the students may be unfamiliar with. No? Basically, for the content, for the context where they come from. And so that way you guarantee that the intended interpretations will be impartial. No? This is also a must here. The next one is consistency. We already saw that. No? So we want to have, we want to provide assessment records that are consistent. No? And remember, when we saw consistency on Thursday, you want to avoid, or you want to minimize, no, the impact of inconsistency to the minimum, no? Bueno, redundando, no? Well, there are some ideas, some techniques that you can use to do that. No? Those are in chapter 7. But basically, one way is to explain to students that they're going to encounter this. You have to make it very clear in the rubrics, in the explanation of the task. And share this activity with all the students. No? Okay, and the last one is you want to make sure that your language assessment is practical. No? Practical to develop, or to create, to administer, and to use in the classroom. Yeah, because you as a teacher, you have hundreds of students, no? So you want to create language tasks, language assessments that are all this, no? Okay, meaningful, generalizable, etc. It's a lot, right? Yeah, but also you want to have time to grade them, no? To elaborate your records and to inform the students about the grades and everything. So you want it to be practical, no? To develop, administer, and use in the classroom. Okay. Okay. And so now the question here is where do we find a connection now between all these elements that we want, no, in an assessment, right? The claims, no, for example, the claims that you make, no, for the assessment, and so to get this, to make it easier for you as a teacher, that's where we come to use what is called the assessment task template, no? Which includes detailed specifications, no? So that's basically what it is, no? Something that includes detailed specifications for creating multiple assessment tasks. Yeah, on page 98, no, we have the definition. So maybe it's a good idea to go to page 98 here for better understanding. Page 98, we have an assessment task templates, no? Maybe you can go there. Step 2, let me see where that is. It's as after step 3. If you can go back 1 and 2 here. And let me see where you are. Expected response.
Yes, Prof, because I don't have the number of the page.
Let me see. Can you freeze that over here? Input. Let me see where input is. That word input. Input. All right. Leave it here. Using. All right. Step 2. All right. If you are in step 2.
Yes,
describe. Yeah. So you have to go past input. No, go to the next one. Input. Go to the next page. Then go to the next page.
Yes, input.
Yes, and then you go. Then you go past step 3, modifying a TLU task to develop an assessment task template. So after that, no, after this step 3, then you on the next page, in the middle of the next page, we can find the definition of an assessment task template.
Yes, Prof. I got it.
Yeah, great. And step 3, great. Assessment task states. Provide, yeah, that one, no? Very good, yeah. So Abby, could you please read the definition here?
Yes. An assessment task template provides the basis for creating different assessment tasks that have many activities and procedures and TCs in common. It consists of a set of activities and procedures to be followed in administering the assessment. Second, a set of TC, and 3, a recording method.
Recording. So here, thank you very much, Abby. So here we have the 3 parts, the 3 components, a set of activities and procedures to be followed to administer the assessment, this a set of TCs. TC stands for characteristics, no? Task characteristics. Las características de la tarea, no? That's in Spanish. And 3, a recording method. Right, so as you can see here, an assessment task template is what we use, no? Which provides us the basis for creating different assessment tasks. Okay, and basically, like I said at the beginning, it's like having some kind of plantilla, no? A model, a pattern that you already have, no? And then by analyzing each particular task, you adapt it to make this, to convert this task into an assessment task, no? Into an assessment, into a language, part of the language assessment that you are preparing, no? Great, okay. So if we could please go back to the beginning of Unit 8, Chapter 8. Yeah, great. Before step 1, yeah, over here on the picture, no? If we can, yeah, go to next, yeah. So what we see here, no? What you can see here is figure 8.1, no? Which explains the process for creating assessment task templates, no? And blah, blah, blah. Okay, so as you can see here, you have, for example, tasks. Now you need a number of interesting tasks, no? De ahí partimos, no? For example, task 1, 2, and 3. Then you select, no, those that are more particularly interesting, useful, meaningful, etc. Then you describe, no, in detail the target language use task. You modify it to make it, to convert it into a real assessment task of your language assessment. You modify it, and then you have the assessment tasks template for developing other assessment tasks. Okay? So that's what it is. No? So the advantage, obviously, is that once you develop, for example, some task templates, then the next time it's easier because you just go to your bank, no, and you choose you choose the same or no, or you choose from a number from the templates that you already have, and then you decide which activities are suitable for your template, no? Or you decide that you want to use such and such template, and then you have to decide which activities would fit here, no? And then you sit and edit, no, the instructions. You change a little bit, you make it more applicable for real life, you make it more meaningful, and then that you have a new item, no, that you can use for an assessment, for a language assessment, no? O para lo que conocemos como para el examen, no, para la prueba. Great, yeah. And so after this, no, we have the analysis over here, and the review that I already explained. No, these 5 things that you need to have in mind when preparing the assessment task, no, when developing an assessment task. And so again, no, you have meaningfulness in the first one. The second one, that generalizability. No? Number 3, impartiality. No? You want to use items, no, that do not offend any culture, that do not offend a particular group of students or race or gender or sex or anything. No? So impartial. Then consistent, no, consistency. We saw that. That's on the next page here in your And the last one, you have to make sure that it's practical to develop, administer, and use in the class. Great. Okay, so I want to ask you guys if you, in your experience as a teacher, I know that empirically, all of us, me included, have made these considerations, when creating a language assessments. Okay, so I want you to tell us what your experience has been, in creating good language assessments. Have you stopped to think about these 5 factors?
Professor, we have less than a minute, so I will create another session. And
Okay, great. So if we have less than 1 minute, then I'm going to give you this 15 minutes. We're going to start at 5 to 6. 15 minutes to think about how you create or created your assessment, your language assessments, and also to give you time to read pages, to read the next 2 topics. Step 1, step 2. Okay, step 1
Okay.
step 2. So keep reading and see how far you can get, and think about your example